Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ask a Property Manager. My name is Eric Worrell with RentPrep.com, and I am here, as always, with Andrew Schultz of Realty Edge, an associate broker. How you doing, Andrew?
Good. How are you today?
Doing well. I see you've got a new parking spot today. I don't see the same dead trees behind you.
Yeah, they are still back there, but I'm about a half dozen spaces down from where I usually park.
It's the little details that matter. I notice these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look closely, you can actually see the clouds moving across the sunroof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
So everybody gets a little bit of extra scenery for when they're sick of listening to us talk.
There you go. So let's get right into it. This week, we are talking about a question that comes from Christine in the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group. I'm going to kind of summarize what she put here because it's a little bit longer and I got it on the screen right now. But basically, Christine was approached by somebody at a company called ALE Solutions, and what they do is they help to place displaced families that have maybe had a disaster. I think in this case, they said that actually, I don't know if they said what specifically happened to the house, but they're looking for short-term rental for 3 months. With an option to extend month to month starting as soon as possible. They're willing to pay a premium and compensate them because it would be a shorter term lease. So What's your experience with this, and what did you think of when you read this post in the group?
I think if you can make it work so that it's beneficial for both you and them, it's a good situation. We did one of these last summer, I think it was. Family lost their house in a fire. They needed a place to live while they were rebuilding their home. And they were offering us, it was an expensive, for Buffalo, it was an expensive rental. It was, I want to say we had the house listed at $1,800 a month. Mm-hmm. They came in and offered us, I want to say $2,200 a month. They wanted a 6-month lease with the option to extend. And the way the lease dates had fallen, the 6-month would have put us right back into prime leasing season. Mm-hmm. And then we basically told them, we'll give you the month-to-month extension, but no more than, I think it was 3 months, because that would basically put us right at the end of peak leasing season.
Yep.
And it worked out flawlessly. The company that came in, or the tenant that came in, rather, they were coming from a single-family residence, and they were in our single-family residence, so they were very good about taking care of the property, making sure the lawn and the snow and everything was taken care of. Mm-hmm. Took good care of the property as far as maintenance and things like that go. The rent was always on time. Actually early, usually about a week early.
And that was coming directly from the company, not the tenant, right?
Coming from the housing company. Usually, so the way these companies typically work is like an insurance company like State Farm will be here and say, all right, this person is experienced a fire loss. We need to get them into a house. Let's call, the company we used was ARC, American Relocation. Mm-hmm. ARC handles the case and just bills everything back to State Farm. Okay. So realistically speaking, you're one step removed from the insurance company. It's the insurance company that's really paying the rent. They pay it to the housing company. The housing company pays it to you.
That's kind of crazy when you think about your situation with that, though, because you got State Farm, mm-hmm. and then you got ARC, and then you got the tenant who actually really wasn't involved with the payment, and then you as the property manager, and then the investor.
Then the investor on the back end. Yeah, there's a lot of steps there. Yeah. Well, and if you think that's bad, you should see some of the foreclosures that we get into, because it's the bank, and then there's usually an asset manager, then there's like a liquidation specialist, and it's just layers. Then I factor in someplace, and then obviously the end user, the buyer. So yeah, it's just layers on layers. It's crazy sometimes.
So if I was to guess in Christine's situation here, I would think if it was me getting this request from somebody, my radar would be going up, being like, is this like a Craigslist, spam or something like that? And is this person going to ask me to send them a check before they, get this person in? So mm-hmm. I have seen this come up in the group other times. I know Jerry Warner, who's out in Ohio, who's active in the group, said he did great with one of these. So it really just depends on your situation. Does it match up for your situation and what you're looking for?
Does it meet your needs? That's basically what it boils down to. Because you're right, they will pay extra for the short term rental, and like the one that we had was a 6-month lease term with the option to extend, mm-hmm. and they definitely needed the extension because the house was nowhere near complete for the tenant to move back into. So it worked out for both of us in the long term there. The other nice thing is we were able to screen the tenants top to bottom the same way we would any other tenant. Okay. So we still had a full file on that tenant. Tenants were responsible for if they caused damage to the property or something like that. We had a full file on those tenants. So if we needed to go back against them, we could. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of nice. We did have the ability, and I think the tenants paid the deposit as well, if I remember correctly. So they had some skin in the game, but at least they didn't have to pay their monthly rent. So it worked out well.
Do you think that there's any room for negotiation when you're dealing with a company like ARC or ALE?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You got to remember, at the end of the day, their goal is to put a tenant into housing, just the same way that your goal is to keep your housing filled.
hmm
So they'll negotiate when they need to on the terms and things like that. If it means that they make the, they make the placement, because that's obviously how they generate a revenue, is by placing these people into these temporary living situations. So their goals and your goals align. It's just a matter of, can you make everything, can you iron everything out and make all the details picture perfect, I guess.
Do you think it's possible to create contacts with people at these companies in advance if you've never worked with one of them?
Now that you mention that, I'm kind of running it through the back of my head, because I'm thinking to myself, this is not a bad situation to find yourself in. Yeah, I'm sure that you could make contacts with these places. I would think that they would, they probably have a database of places that they've had good experiences with, just the same way that you have experiences with your tenants and stuff like that. I would assume that if you have, especially if you have a lot of rentals in a given geographic area, if they do a lot of placements in that area, I would think that they would want you to be kind of at the top of their list as a preferred service provider.
Sure. All right. Well, I think that covers this topic, and hopefully, if somebody gets a request like this in the future, they won't just think it's spam. I can take a look at it, see if it fits for what you got going on with your rental property and your needs and their needs, and it could be a great fit and make some extra money in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely worth examining. It might work, it might not, but it's definitely worth examining.
All right. Thanks again, Andrew. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.